get the recording. Let's get screen share. Here. Get it big for all our old eyes. Wait, what? Who said that? All right. Dave, you want to kick us off?
Sure.
Why not?
The mystery of sex transmutation, the 10th step towards riches. The meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. The emotion of sex brings into being a state of mind. Because of ignorance on the subject, the state of mind is generally associated with the physical, and because of improper influences to which most people have been subjected in acquiring knowledge of sex, things essentially physical have highly biased the mind. The emotion of sex has back of it the possibility of three constructive potentialities. They are the perpetuation of mankind, the maintenance of health as a therapeutic agency, it has no equal, the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation. Sex transmutation is simple and easily explained. It means the switching of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. Sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. So strongly impelling is the desire for sexual contact that men freely run the risk of life and reputation to indulge it. When harnessed, the redirected along other lines, this motivating force maintains all of its attributes of keenness and imagination, courage, etc., which may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. The transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower, to be sure, but the reward is worth the effort. The desire for sexual expression is inborn and natural. The desire cannot and should not be submerged or eliminated, but it should be given an outlet through forms of expression which enrich the body, mind, and spirit of man. If not given this form of outlet through transmutation, it will seek outlets through purely physical channels. A river may be dammed and its water controlled for a time, but eventually it will force an outlet. The same is true of the emotion of sex. It may be submerged and controlled for a time, but its very nature causes it to be ever seeking means of expression. If it is not transmuted into some creative effort, it will find a less worthy outlet. Fortunate indeed is the person who has discovered how to give sex emotion an outlet through some form of creative effort, for he has, by that discovery, lifted himself to the status of a genius. Scientific research has disclosed these scientific facts. 1, the men of greatest achievement are men with highly developed sex natures, men who have learned the art of sex transmutation. 2, the men who have accumulated great fortunes and achieved outstanding recognition in literature, art, industry, architecture, and the professions were motivated by the influence of a woman. The research from which these astounding discoveries were made went back through the pages of biography and history for more than 2,000 years. Wherever there was evidence available in connection with the lives of men and women of great achievement, it indicated most convincingly that they possessed highly developed sex natures. The emotion of sex is an irresistible force against which there can be no such opposition as an immovable body. When driven by this emotion, men become gifted with a superpower power for action. Understand this truth, and you will catch the significance of the statement that sex transmutation will lift one to the status of a genius. The emotion of sex contains the secret of creative ability. Destroy the sex glands, whether in man or beast, and you will have removed the major source of action. For proof of this, observe what happens to any animal after it has been castrated. A bull becomes as docile as a cow after it has been altered sexually. Sex alteration takes out of the male, whether man or beast, all the fight that was in him. Sex alteration of the female has the same effect. All right. Tom, you want to go? Or anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go. I was just letting Joda in.
Oh, cool.
All right. Mute Joda. What's up, Joda? All right, the 10 mind stimuli. The human mind responds to stimuli through which it may be keyed up to a high rate of vibration known as enthusiasm, creative imagination, intense desire, etc. The stimuli to which the mind responds most freely are: 1, the desire for sex expression; 2, love; 3, a burning desire for fame, power, or financial gain, money; 4, music; 5, friendship between either those of the same sex or those of the opposite sex; 6, a mastermind alliance based upon the harmony of 2 or more people who will ally themselves for spiritual or temporal advancement; 7, mutual suffering, such as the experience by people who are persecuted; 8, autosuggestion; 9, fear; and 10, narcotics or alcohol. The desire for sex expression comes at the head of the list of the stimuli, which most effectively step up the vibration of the mind and start the wheels of physical action. 8 of these stimuli are natural and constructive. 2 are destructive. The list is here presented for the purpose of enabling you to make a comparative study of the major sources of the mind stimulation. From this study, it will be readily seen that the motion of sex is, by great odds, the most intense and powerful of all mind stimuli. This comparison is necessary as a foundation for proof of this statement that transmutation of sex energy may lift one to the status of genius. Let us find out what constitutes a genius. Some wiseacre has said that a genius is a man who wears long hair, eats queer food, lives alone, and serves as a target for the joke makers. A better definition of genius is a man who has discovered how to increase the vibration of thought to the point where he can freely communicate with sources of knowledge not available through the ordinary rate of vibration of thought. The person who thinks will want to ask some questions concerning the definition of genius. The first question will be, how may one communicate with sources of knowledge which are not available through the ordinary rate of vibration of thought? The next question will be, are there known sources of knowledge which are available only to genii, and if so, what are these sources, and exactly how may they be reached? We shall offer proof of the soundness of some of the more important statements made in this book, or at least we shall offer evidence through which you may secure your own proof through experimentation, and in doing so, we shall answer both of these questions. Genius is developed through the sixth sense. The reality of the sixth sense has been fairly well established. The sixth sense is creative imagination. The faculty of creative imagination is one which the majority of people never use during an entire lifetime, and if used at all, it is usually happens by a mere accident. Relatively small number of people use with deliberation and purpose afterthought the faculty of creative imagination. Those who use the faculty of voluntary and understanding of its functions are genii. The faculty of creative imagination is the direct link between the finite mind of man and the infinite intelligence. All so-called revelations referred to in the realm of religion, and all discoveries of basic or new principles in the field of invention take place through the faculty of creative imagination. When ideas or concepts flash into one's mind through what is popularly called a hunch, they come from one or more of the following sources. Next, Christina.
Okay. Number one, infinite intelligence. Number two, one's subconscious mind, wherein is stored every sense, impression, and thought impulse, whichever reached the brain through any of the five senses. From the mind of some other person who has just released the thought or picture of the idea or concept through conscious thought, or from the other person's subconscious storehouse. There are no other known sources from which inspired ideas of hunches may be received. The creative imagination functions best when the mind is vibrating due to some form of mind stimulation at an exceedingly high rate. That is, when the mind is functioning at a rate of vibration higher than that of ordinary normal thought. When brain action has been stimulated through one or more of the 10 minded stimulants, it has the effect of leaving the individual far above the horizon of ordinary thought and permits him to envision distance, scope, and quality of thoughts not available on the lower plane, such as that occupied while one is engaged in the solution of the problems of business and professional routine. When lifted to this higher level of thought through any form of mind stimulation, an individual occupies relatively the same position as one who has ascended in an airplane to a height from which he may see over and beyond the horizon line, which limits his vision while on the ground. Moreover, while on the higher level of thought, the individual is not hampered or bound by any of the stimuli which circumscribe and limit his vision while wrestling with the problems of gaining the three basic necessities of food, clothing, and shelter. He is in a world of thought in which the ordinary workaday thoughts have been as effectively removed as are the hills and valleys and other limitations of physical vision when he rises in an airplane. While on this exalted plane of thought, the creative faculty of the mind is given freedom for action. The way has been cleared for the sixth sense to function. It becomes receptive to ideas which could not reach the individual under any other circumstances. The sixth sense is the faculty which marks the difference between a genius and an ordinary individual. The creative faculty becomes more alert and receptive to vibrations originating outside the individual's subconscious mind. The more this faculty is used, and the more the individual relies upon it and makes demands upon it for thought impulses. This faculty can be cultivated and developed only through use. That which is known as one's conscious operates entirely through the faculty of the sixth sense. Would someone else like to take over?
Sure, I'll read for a minute. Great artists, writers, musicians, and poets become great because they acquire the habit of relying upon still small voice, which speaks from within. Through the faculty of the creative imagination, it is a well-known fact to people who have keen imaginations that their best ideas come through the so-called hunches. There's a great orator who does not attain greatness until his eyes close and begins to rely entirely upon the faculty of creative imagination. When asked why he closed his eyes just before the climaxes of his oratory, he replied, "I do it because then I speak through the ideas which come to me from within." One of America's most successful and best-known financiers followed the habit of closing his eyes for 2 or 3 minutes before making a decision. When asked why he did this, he replied, "With my eyes closed, I am able to draw upon a source of superior intelligence." The late Elmer R. Gage of Chevy Chase, Maryland, created more than 200 useful patents using the creative faculty. His method of both significant and interesting to one interesting and attaining the status of a genius, in which category Dr. Gage unquestionably belonged. Dr. Gage was one Dr. Gage was one of the really great, thought less publicized scientists of the world. His laboratory he had was called Personal Communication Room. It was practically soundproof, and so it arranged that all the light could be shut out. It was equipped with a small table on which he kept a small pad of writing paper in front of the lights. When Dr. Gage desired to draw upon the forces available to him through his creative imagination, he would go into his room, seat himself at the table, shut off the lights, and concentrate upon the known factors of invention to which he was working. Remaining in that position until the ideas begin to flash into his mind in connection with the unknown factors of the invention. On one occasion, the ideas came so fast that he was forced to write almost 3 hours. When the thoughts stopped flowing, he examined his notes and found that they contained a minute description of the principles which bade not a parallel among them data known of the scientific world. Moreover, the answer to his problem was intelligently presented in these notes. In this manner, Dr. Gates completed over 200 patents which he had begun, but not completed by half-baked brains. The evidence of truth of this statement is in the United States Patent Office. Dr. Gates earned his living by sitting for ideas for individuals and corporations. Some of the largest corporations in America pay substantial fees by the hour for sitting for ideas. The reasoning faculty is often faulty because it is largely guided by one's accumulated experience. Not all knowledge which one accumulates through experience is accurate. Ideas received through the creative faculty are more reliable for the reasons that they come from the source more reliable than any which are available to the reasoning faculty of the mind. The major difference between the genius and the ordinary crank inventor may be in the fact that the genius works his faculty of creative imagination, while the crank knows nothing of this faculty. The scientific inventor, such as Mr. Edison and Dr. Gates, makes use of both of the synthetic and the creative faculties of imagination. For this example, the scientific inventor, or the genius, begins an invention by organizing and combining the known ideas or principles accumulated through experience. Through the synthetic faculty, the reasoning faculty, he finds accumulated knowledge to be insufficient for the completion of his invention. He draws upon the sources of knowledge available to him through his creative faculty. The method by which he does this varies with the individual, but the sum and the substance of his procedure. 1. He stimulates his mind so that it vibrates on a higher than average plane, using one or more tenth of the mind stimulants or some other stimulant of his choice. 2. He concentrates upon the known factors, the finished part of his event, and he creates in his mind the perfect picture of unknown factors, the unfinished parts of his invention. He holds this picture in his mind until it has at least been taken over by the subconscious mind, then relaxes by clearing his mind of all thought and waits for his answer to flash into his mind. Sometimes the results are both definite and immediate. At other times, the results are negative, depending upon the state of development of the sixth sense or creative faculty. Mr. Edison tried out more than 10,000 different combinations of the idea of the synthetic faculty of his imagination before he tuned in to the creative faculty and got this answer, which perfected the incandescent light. His experience was similar when he produced the talking machine. There is plenty of reliable evidence that the faculty of the creative imagination exists. The evidence is available through the accurate callings without having extensive education. Lincoln was a notable example of a great leader who achieved greatness through the discovery and use of his faculty of his creative imagination. He discovered and began to use his faculty as a result of stimulation of love which he experienced after he met Anne Rutledge, a statement of the highest significance in connection with the study of the source of genius. The pages of history are filled with the records of great leaders whose achievements may be traced directly to the influence of women who aroused the creative faculties of their minds through the stimulation of sex desires. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of these. When inspired by his first wife, Josephine, he was irresistible and invincible. When his better judgment of his reason prompted him to put Josephine aside, he began to decline. His defeat and St. Helena were not far distant. If good taste will permit, we might easily mention the scores of men well known to American people who climbed to great heights of achievement under the stimulation influencing of their wives, only to drop back to destruction after their money and power went to their heads. They put aside their old wife for a new one. Napoleon was not only a powerful man to discover that sex influence from the right source, but more powerful than any substance of expediency which may be created by mere reason. The human mind responds to stimulation. Among the greatest and most powerful of these stimuli is the urge of sex. When harnessed and transmuted, the driving force is capable of lifting men into a higher sphere of thought which enables them to master the sources of worry and petty annoyances which beset their pathway until they're on their lower plane. Would anyone else like to continue?
I can continue. All right.
We kick in, Dave.
But I gotta read off this. That's too small for me.
I can make it bigger. Hold up.
Yeah.
That better?
One more time.
Okay, hold on.
There you go. All right. So, unfortunately, only the have made the discovery. Others have accepted the experience of sex covering one of its major potentialities. A fact number of others as compared to the limit number of genies. For the purpose of refreshing the memory in connection with the facts available from the biography, and we here present the names of a few men of outstanding achievement was known to have been a highly sex nature. The genius theirs undoubtedly found the source of power in transmuted sex energy. George Washington, Napoleon Bonaparte, William Shakespeare, Lincoln, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Robert Burns, Thomas Jefferson, Albert Herbert, Albert H. Gary, Oscar Wilde, John H. Patterson, Andrew Jackson, and Rico Caruso. Your own knowledge of biography will enable you to add to this list. And a single man in all history of civilization who achieved outstanding success in any cause by a well-developed sex nature. If you do not wish to rely upon biographies of now living, take inventory of those whom you know to be men of great achievement, and one among them who is not highly sexed. Sex energy is a creative energy. Genii. There never has been and never will be a great leader, builder, or artist lacking in this driving force of sex. Will understand these statements to mean that all. No women surely understand these statements to mean that all who are highly sexed are genii. Status of only genius only when and if he stimulates his mind upon the forces available through the creative faculty of the imagination. Stimuli with which the stepping out of the vibrations makes energy. The mere possession of this energy is not sufficient to produce a energy must be transmuted from desire for physical contact into some other desire in action before it will lift one of the status of genius. Genii, because of great sex desires, the majority of men who must understanding and misuse of this great force to the status of the lower animal. Why men seldom succeed before 40. I discovered from over 25,000 people that men who succeed in outstanding ways seldom do so 40. And more often they do not strike their real pace until they are well beyond the age of 50. So outstanding that it prompted me to go into the study carefully, carrying the investigation over a period of more than 12 years. The fact that the major reasons why the majority of men is their tendency to their energies through overindulgence in physical expression of the emotion of sex. The majority of men never learn that the urge of sex has other possibilities, which far transcend in importance that a mere, physical, the majority of men never sex has other possibilities which far transcend in importance that of mere physical. The majority of those who make this discovery do so after having wasted many years in sex energy is at its height prior to the age of 45 to 50. This usually is followed by noteworthy achievement. The lives of many men past the age of 40 reflect a continued dissipation of energy that have been more profitable turned into better channels. Their finer emotions are sown widely to their four winds. Out habit, the male grew the term sowing his wild oats. The desire for sex by far the strongest and most impelling of all the human motions. And for this reason, this desire, when harnessed and transmuted into action, physical expression, may raise one of the status of a genius. One of the able businessmen frankly admitted that his attractive secretary was responsible for he created. He admitted that her presence lifted him creative imagination, such as he could experience under no other stimulus. Successful man in America owes most of his success to the influence of very charming, served as his source of inspiration for more than 12 years. Everyone knows the man to whom his reference is made, but not everyone knows the real source of his achievement. Anybody else?
I could jump in here. Where are we at? Let me pick up here.
Right at the top, history is not lacking.
History is not lacking.
Got it. All right. History is not lacking in examples of men who attain to the status of genii as the result of the use of artificial mind stimulants in the form of alcohol and narcotics. Edward Allan Poe wrote The Raven while under the influence of liquor, dreaming dreams that mortal never dared to dream before. James Whitcomb Riley did his best writing while under the influence of alcohol. Perhaps it was thus he saw the order of intermingling of the real and the dream, and the meal above the river and the mist above the stream. Robert Burns wrote best when intoxicated. For all lang syne, my dear, will take a cup of kindness yet for all lang syne. But let us be remembered that many such men have destroyed themselves in the end. Nature has prepared her own potions, with which men may safely stimulate their minds so they vibrate on a plane that enables them to tune into fine and rare thoughts which come from no man knows where. No satisfactory substitute for nature's stimulus has ever been found. In a fact, well known to psychologists, that there is a very close relationship between sex desires and spiritual urges, a fact which accounts for the peculiar behavior of people who participate in orgies known as religious revivals, common among the primitive types. The world is ruled and destiny of civilization is established by the human emotions. People are influenced in their actions, not by reason so much as by feelings. The creative faculty of the mind is set into action entirely by emotions and not by cold reason. The most powerful of human emotions is that of sex. There are other mind stimulants, some of which have been listed, but no one of them, nor all of them combined can equal the driving power of sex. A mind stimulant is any influence which will either temporarily or permanently increase the vibrations of thought. The 10 major stimulants described are the most common resorted to. Through these sources, one may commune with infinite intelligence or enter at will the storehouse of the subconscious mind, either one's own or that of another person, a procedure which is all there is of genius. A teacher who has trained and directed the efforts of more than 30,000 salespeople made astounding discoveries that highly sexed men are the most efficient salesmen. The explanation is that the factor of personality known as personal magnetism is nothing more or less than sex energy. Highly sexed people always have a plentiful supply of magnetism. Through cultivation and understanding, these vital forces may be drawn upon and used to great advantage in the relationships between people. This energy may be communicated to others through the following media. A handshake. The touch of a hand indicates instantly the presence of magnetism or the lack of it. The tone of voice. Magnetism or sex energy is the factor with which the voice may be colored or made musical and charming. Posture and carriage of the body. Highly sexed people move briskly and with grace and ease. The vibrations of thought. Highly sexed people mix the emotion of sex with their thoughts and may do so at will, and in that way may influence those around them. Body adornment. People who are highly sexed are usually very careful about their personal appearance. They usually select clothing of a style becoming to their personality, physique, complexion, etc. When employing salesmen the more capable sales manager looks for the qualities of personal magnetism as the first requirement of a salesman. People who lack sex energy will never become enthusiastic nor inspire others with enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is one of the most important requisites in salesmanship, no matter what one is selling. The public speaker, the orator, the preacher, the lawyer, the salesman who is lacking of sex energy is a flop as far as being able to influence others is concerned. Coupled with this, the fact that most people can be influenced only through an appeal to their emotions, and you will understand the importance of sex energy as a part of the salesman's native ability. Master salesmen attain the status of mastery in sales because they either consciously or unconsciously transmute the energy of sex in sales enthusiasm. In this statement may be found a very practical suggestion as to the actual meaning of sex transmutation. A salesman who knows how to take his mind off the subject of sex and direct it in sales effort with as much enthusiasm and determination as he would apply to its original purpose has acquired the art of sex transmutation. Whether he knows it or not, the majority of salesmen who transmute their sex energy do so without being in the least aware of what they are doing and how they are doing it. Transmutation of sex energy calls for more willpower than the average person cares to use for this purpose. Those who find it difficult to summon willpower sufficient to transmutation may gradually acquire this ability. Though this requires willpower, the reward for the practice is more than worth the effort. The entire subject of sex is one with which the majority of people appear to be unpardonably ignorant. The urge of sex has been grossly misunderstood, slandered, burlesqued by the ignorant and the evil-minded for so long that the very word sex is seldom used in polite society. Men and women who are known to be blessed, yes, blessed, with highly sex natures are usually looked upon as being people who will bear watching. Instead of being called blessed, they're usually called cursed. Millions of people, even in this age of enlightenment, have inferiority complexes which they develop because of their false belief that a highly sex nature is a curse. These statements of the virtue of sex energy should not be construed as justification for libertine. The emotion of sex is a virtue only when used intelligently and with discrimination. It may be misused, and often is, to such an extent that it debases instead of enriches both body and mind. The better use of this power is the burden of this chapter. It seems quite significant to the author when he made the discovery that practically every great leader whom he had privilege of analyzing was a man whose achievements were largely inspired by a woman. In many instances, the woman in the case was a modest, self-denying wife of whom the public had heard but little or nothing. In a few instances, the source of inspiration has been traced to the other woman. Perhaps such cases may not be entirely unknown to you. Intemperance and sex habits is just as detrimental as intemperance and habits of drinking and eating. In this age in which we live, an age which began with World War, intemperance and habits of sex is common. This orgy of indulgence may account for the shortage of great leaders, No man can avail himself of the forces of his creative imagination without dissipating them. Man is the only creature on earth which violates nature's purpose in this connection. Every other animal indulges in sex nature in moderation, with purpose which harmonizes with the laws of nature. Every other animal responds to the call of sex only in season. Man's inclination is to declare open season. Every intelligent person knows that stimulation in excess through alcohol, alcoholic drink, and narcotics is a form of intemperance, which destroys the vital organs of the body, including the brain. Not every person knows, however, that the overindulgence in sex expression may become a habit as destructive and as detrimental to creative effort as narcotics or liquor. A sex mad man is not essentially different than a dope madman. Both have lost control of their faculties of reason and willpower. Sexual overindulgence may not only destroy reason and willpower, but it may also lead to either temporary or permanent insanity. Many cases of hypochondria, imaginary illness, grow out of habits developed in ignorance of the true function of sex. From these brief references to the subject, it may be readily seen that ignorance on the subject of sex transmutation forces stupendous penalties upon the ignorant on the one hand, and withholds from them equally stupendous benefits on the other. Widespread ignorance on the subject of sex is due to the fact that the subject has been surrounded with mystery and beclouded by dark silence. The conspiracy of mystery and silence has had the same effect on minds of young people that the psychology of prohibition had. The results has been increased curiosity and desire to acquire more knowledge of this verboten subject, and to the shame of all lawmakers and most physicians, by training best qualified to educate youth on the subject, information has not been easily available. Seldom does an individual enter upon highly creative effort in any field of endeavor before the age of 40. The average man reaches the period of his greatest capacity to create between 40 and 60. These statements are based upon analysis of thousands of men and women who have been carefully observed. They should be encouraging to those who fail to arrive before the age of 40, and to those who become frightened at the approach of old age around the 40th year mark. The years between 40 and 50 are, as a rule, the most fruitful. Man should approach this age not with fear and trembling, but with hope and eager anticipation. If you want evidence that most men do not believe or do not begin to do their best work at the age of 40, study the records of the most successful men known to the American people, and you will find it. Henry Ford had not hit his pace of achievement until he had passed the age of 40. Andrew Carnegie was well past 40 before he began to reap the rewards of his efforts. James J. Hill was still running a telegraph key at the age of 40. His stupendous achievements took place after that age. Biographies of American industrialists and financiers are filled with evidence that the period from 40 to 60 is the most productive age of man. Between the ages of 30 and 40, man begins to learn, if he ever learns, the art of sex transmutation. This discovery is generally accidental, and more often than otherwise, the man who makes it is totally unconscious of his discovery. He may observe that his power of achievement has increased around the age of 35 to 40, but in most cases, he's not familiar with the cause of this change. The nature begins to harmonize the emotions of love and sex in the individual between the ages of 30 and 40 so that he may draw upon these great forces and apply them jointly as stimuli to action. Sex alone is a mighty urge to action, but if forces are like a cyclone, they are often uncontrollable. When the emotion of love begins to mix itself with the emotion of sex, the result is calmness of purpose, poise, accuracy of judgment, and balance. What person who has obtained the age of 40 is so unfortunate as to be unable to analyze these statements and to corroborate them by his own experience. When driven by his nature to please a woman based solely upon the emotion of sex, a man may be and usually is capable of great achievement, but his actions may be disorganized, distorted, and totally destructive. When driven by his desire to please a woman based upon the motive of sex alone, a man may still cheat, even commit murder. But when the emotion of love is mixed with the emotion of sex, that same man will guide his actions with more sanity, balance, and reason. Alrighty, somebody want to jump in?
I got you. Criminologists have discovered that the most hardened criminals can be reformed through the influence of a woman's love. There is no record of a criminal having been reformed solely through the sex influence. These facts are well known, but their cause is not. Reformation comes, if at all, through the heart of the emotional side of man, not through his head or reasoning side. Reformation means a change of heart. It does not mean a change of head. A man may, because of reason, make certain changes in personal conduct to avoid the consequences of undesirable effects. But genuine reformation comes only through a change of the heart through the desire of change. Love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving men to heights of superior achievement. Love is the emotion which serves as the safety valve and ensures balance, poise, and constructive effort. When combined, these three emotions may lift one to an altitude of genius. There are genii, however, who know but little of the emotion of love. Most of them may be found engaged in some form of action which is destructive, or at least not based upon justice or fairness towards others. If good taste would permit, a dozen genii could be named in the field of industry and finance, who ride ruthlessly over the rights of their fellow men. They seem totally lacking in conscience. The reader can easily supply his own list of such men. The emotions are states of mind. Nature has provided man with the chemistry of the mind, which operates in a manner similar to the principles of chemistry of matter. It is a well-known fact that through the aid of chemistry of matter, the chemist may create a deadly poison by mixing certain elements, none of which are in themselves harmful in the right proportions. The emotions may, likewise, be combined so that as to create a deadly poison. The emotions of sex and jealousy, when mixed, may turn a person into an insane beast. The presence of any one or more of the destructive emotions in the human mind through the chemistry of the mind sets up a poison which may destroy one's sense of judgment and fairness. In extreme cases, the presence of any combination of these emotions in the mind may destroy one's reason. The road to genius consists of the development, control, and use of sex, love, and romance. Briefly, the process may be stated as follows. Encourage the persistence and the motions of the dominating thoughts in one's mind, and discourage the presence of all the destructive emotions. The mind is a creature of habit. It thrives upon the dominating thoughts it fed. Through the faculty of willpower, one may discourage the presence of any emotion and encourage the presence of any other. Control of the mind through the power of will is not difficult. Control comes from persistence and habit. The secret of control lies in the understanding the process of transmutation. When any negative emotion presents itself in one's mind, it can be transmuted into a positive or constructive emotion by the simple procedure of changing one's thought. There is no other road to genius than through voluntary self-effort. A man may attain to great heights of financial and business achievement solely by the driving force of sex energy. But history is filled with the evidence that he may, and usually does, carry with him certain traits of characteristics which rob him of the ability to either hold or enjoy his fortune. This is worthy of analyzing, thought, and meditation for the state of the truth, the knowledge of which may be helpful to women as well as men. Ignorance of this has cost thousands of people their privilege of happiness, even though they possess riches. The emotions of sex and of love and sex, they're unmistakably marks upon the features. Moreover, these signs are so visible that all who wish may read them. The man who is driven by the storm of passion based upon sex desires alone plainly advertises that fact to the entire world by the expression of his eyes and the lines of his face. The emotion of love, when mixed with the emotion of sex, softens, modifies, and beautifies the facial expressions. No character analyst is needed to tell you this. You may observe this all for yourself. The emotion of love brings out and develops the artistic and the aesthetic nature of man. It leaves its impress upon one's very soul, even after the fire has subdued by the time of circumstance. Memories of love never pass. They linger, guide, and influence long after the source of stimulation has faded. There is nothing new in this. Every person who has been moved by genuine love knows that it leaves enduring traces upon the human heart. The effect of love endures because love is spiritual in nature. The man who cannot be stimulated to great heights of achievement by love is hopeless, and he is dead, though he may seem to live. Even the memories of love are sufficient to lift one to a higher plane of creative effort. The major force of love may spend itself and pass away like a fire which burned itself out, but it leaves behind indelible marks and evidence that it passed that way. Its departure often prepares the human heart for a still greater love. Go back into your yesterdays at time and bathe your mind in the beautiful memories of past love. It will soften the influence of the present worries and annoyances. It will give you a source of escape from the unpleasant realities of life, and maybe, who knows, your mind will yield to you during the temporary retreat into the world of fantasy, ideas, or plans which may change the entire financial or spiritual status of your life. If you believe yourself unfortunate because you have loved and lost, perish that thought. One who has loved truly can never lose entirely. Love is whimsical and temperamental. Its nature is inferior and transitory. It comes when it pleases and goes away without warning. Accept and enjoy it while it remains, but spend no time worrying about its departure. Worry will never bring it back. Dismiss also the thought that love never comes but once. Love may come and go, times without number. But there are no two love experiences which affect one in just the same way. There may be, and there usually is, one love experience which leaves a deeper imprint on the heart than all the other. But all love experiences are beneficial, except to the person who becomes resentful and cynical when love makes its departure. There should be no disappointment over love, and there would be none if people understood the difference between the emotions of love and sex. The major difference is that love is spiritual, while sex is biological. No experience which touches the human heart with this spiritual force can possibly be harmed except through ignorance or jealousy. Love is without question life's greatest experiment. It brings one into communion with infinite intelligence. When mixed with the emotions of romance and sex, it may lead one far up the ladder of creative effort. The emotions of love, sex, and romance are sides of the eternal triangle and achievement building genius. Nature creates genii through no other force. All right. Who's up? Christina?
I'm really enjoying this chapter. Love is an emotion with many sides, shades, and colors. The love which one feels for parents or children is quite different from that which one feels for one's sweetheart. The one is mixed with the emotion of sex, while the other is not. The love which one feels in true friendship is not the same as that felt for one's sweetheart, parents, or children, but it too is a form of love. Then there is the emotion of love for things inanimate, such as the love of nature's handiwork. But the most intense and burning of all these various kinds of love is that experienced in the blending of the emotions of love and sex. Marriages not blessed with the eternal affinity of love, properly balanced and proportioned with sex, cannot be, cannot be happy ones and seldom endure. Love alone will not bring happiness in marriage, nor will sex alone. When these two beautiful emotions are blended, marriage may bring about a state of mind closest to the spiritual that one may ever know on this earthly plane. When the emotion of romance is added to those of love and sex, the obstructions between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence are removed. Then a genius has been born. What a different story is this than those usually associated with the emotion of sex. Here is an interpretation of the emotion which lifts it out of the commonplace and makes of it potter's clay in the hands of God, from which he fashions all that is beautiful and inspiring. It is an interpretation which would, when properly understood, bring harmony out of the chaos which exists in too many marriages. The disharmonies often expressed in the form of nagging may usually be traced to lack of knowledge on the subject of sex, where love, romance, and the proper understanding of the emotion and function of sex abide, there is no disharmony between married people. Fortunate is the husband whose wife understands the true relationship between the emotions of love, sex, and romance. One motivated by this holy triumvirate, no form of labor is burdensome because even the most lovely form of effort takes on the nature of a labor of love. It is a very old saying that a man's wife may either make him or break him, but the reason is not always understood. The making and breaking is the result of the wife's understanding or lack of understanding of the emotions of love, sex, and romance. Despite the fact that men are polygamous by the very nature of their biological inheritance, it is true that no woman has as great an influence on a man as his wife, unless he is married to a woman totally unsuited to his nature. If a woman permits her husband to lose interest in her and become more interested in other women, it is usually because of her ignorance or indifference toward the subjects of sex, love, and romance. This statement presupposes, of course, that genuine love once existed between a man and his wife. The facts are equally applicable to a man who permits his wife's interest in him to die. Married people often bicker over a multitude of trivialities. If these are analyzed accurately, the real cause of the trouble will often be found to be indifference or ignorance on these subjects. Man's greatest motivating force is his desire to please woman. The hunter who excelled during prehistoric days before the dawn of civilization did so because of his desire to appear great in the eyes of woman. Man's nature has not changed in this respect. The hunter of today brings home no skins of wild animals, but he indicates his desire for her favor by supplying fine clothes, motor cars, and wealth. Man has the same desire to please woman that he had before the dawn of civilization. The only thing that has changed is his method of pleasing. Men who accumulate large fortunes and attain to great heights of power and fame do so mainly to satisfy their desire to please woman. Take women out of their lives, and great wealth would be useless to most men. It is this inherent desire of man to please woman, which gives woman the power to make or break a man. The woman who understands man's nature and tactfully caters to it need have no fear of competition from other women. Men may be giants with indomitable willpower when dealing with other men, but they are easily managed by the women of their choice. Most men will not admit that they are easily influenced by the women they prefer, because it is in the nature of the male to want to be recognized as the stronger of the species. Moreover, the intelligent woman recognizes this manly trait and very wisely makes no issue of it. Some men know that they are being influenced by the women of their choice, their wives, sweethearts, mothers, or sisters, but they actually refrain from rebelling against the influence because they are intelligent enough to know that no man is happy or complete without the modifying influence of the right woman. The man who does not recognize this important, you need to scroll up, Dominic, please. The man who does not recognize this important truth deprives himself of the power which has done more to help men achieve success than all other forces combined.
Awesome. Hold on a second. Let me stop that and then come over here. That was a good one. Who wants to kick that off with some, I know Christina, you said you're getting a lot out of it. No, it just, these all hit everyone different, every chapter. This one to me, every time I read it is like, it's awesome, but it's like, it's so many different compartments of like what the meanings of each part of it is and how powerful, different parts are for me. So I want to hear what you have to say, Christina, and then whoever else wants to go.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, there's
You muted.
yeah. Okay, thank you. I would agree with you. There's so many different compartments of this. I think a whole book could be written just from this chapter alone. For me, one of the things that I actually kind of always knew, but really truly learned for the first time from reading this, because it's the first time I saw it in words, what can come of it with a healthy sexual relationship with your significant other. Because again, it's in the unseen. Like well, I'm just going to say it, with the orgasms and whatnot, and combined with love and the right mate, where does all that come from? I mean, it's just really, truly a gift from God, I believe.
Yeah.
When you're experiencing that at such a height that only good can come of it, honestly. And I always felt that, with love is so powerful that it truly is the only way to experience sex. Just what I feel. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe, some people on the call, and myself included, have had sex not having that love with the significant other. And it could have been amazing, but it also can be so destructive, so self-destructive, because love wasn't involved. So the biggest takeaway for me is what I've always believed: there's nothing better than love when having a sexual relationship with another. Now, as far as the leaders, let's take a leader that we know, Bill Clinton. No politics involved in this conversation, but, that was so destructive, was it not? That was so destructive. So that's just a perfect example, but yet you have other leaders, according to the readings of this, that benefited from it. So I don't know. I'd like to hear other takeaways.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it. Who else got a takeaway? Don't be shy.
I'm gonna jump on quick because I gotta jump off. I got
Yes,
something I gotta run to. First thought popped in my head, and it didn't come directly from the reading, but because of the reading, it stimulated that thought. And I thought about, the creation of life and how, according to the scriptures, man was created with all of these worldly possessions. But God saw fit for him to say that wasn't enough. So he created his life mate from his rib so he could have more meaning to life. So the material possessions of life, he had it all. But without that, the life didn't have the fullness that it could be. So when I put that perspective in mind, certainly it's a purposeful life. I look at it like that. You have a purposeful life when you have the good fortune to have that kind of connection. And the second thing I just wanted to share was, it was one of the early comments. It was listing 3 things, and it was talking about number 2 was in the absence of, it was, I think it had to do with health, right? Because a lot of the time people don't associate health with love, but I feel like it's the most natural medicine we got.
Yep.
And so that was a couple things. I'm gonna put some more comments with you guys on
Yeah.
the Telegram.
For sure.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Derek.
All right, you guys take care.
You too, brother. What you got, T?
Yeah, my takeaway was about, first of all, I was surprised to see that the sex was about sex and success. It makes a lot of sense because you have to think about it. For me, being in the military, I've been all over, and I'm having sex with several people, but nothing. And then once you get older, like they're saying, you get older, you get away from that type of stuff. And now my wife is my influencer. She does influence me a lot. But the sex part of this whole kind of threw me for a loop, to be honest with you. Just putting the two together, success, and the one of the things I've always said about people getting divorces and everything, when a man goes to another woman, it has a lot to do with communication. The communication break, I feel.
For sure.
And a lot of times people just want somebody to talk to. But it's the man's fault for letting it happen. So the way he says, I'm still surprised how much he said over how many years ago this book was made. It applies to
1937.
almost 90 years. It still applies to. So I mean, this whole chapter of sex just it was amazing to see about the sex and success being connected there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry if I made any sense in that, but
Yeah, well, yeah. No, it's there's a lot. Again, there's so much intertwined within this chapter. It's worth
Right.
Going back through to read again and get a
yeah.
just look at it from a different angle or a different way, or just like let it pour back into you, how it rolls. I mean, because it's powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
You got it, David. I know you always got some notes.
Oh man, I wrote down a lot, but one thing that just, I don't know why I'm going to mention this out of all the things, but I just thought it was kind of funny because we're talking about like how old the book is and stuff, and not funny necessarily, but just felt like, there was a section where they're like putting the blame on women for breaking up marriages because they're ignorant to the way of the men's sexual desires. And
Right.
I don't know, just kind of was a little rude towards women, these days.
Well, that's a long time ago. I mean, that was, again, you looking back in 1937, shit,
Yeah.
not even up to however long ago, where it was like, again, everyone had their place. Men went out and worked, they were hunters and gatherers, whatever. Women stayed home and buried the children and cooked and cleaned and did so it was like but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, for sure. No, I hear you. No, that was just that point I was going to talk about. And, yeah, I don't know. I'm writing all the shallow things down. I was like, I thought this was funny. A sex madman is no different than a dope madman.
Yeah. I mean, again, to Christina's point of like, you look at Clinton, I mean, you turn into a madman, you turn into you let that sexual energy take over, all of your power. It literally sucked your power through. So again, it just, to me, that was one of the things where it was like, just understanding, like, if you can actually harness those sexual energy and that desire, how much passion that is, and move that into some other area of your life, that's when you become a genius. Rather than just focusing on, the act of sex, or, the shallow side of what sex is, versus opening it up to infinite, like you said, when a child, the act of sex, which make a child and have, that orgasm, and have that like euphoric, like magic with your person, with your one versus just the sex. It is a completely different thing. But then to be able to harness that and to put it into something other than what it is like, that was one of my takeaways of that part of it right there. Just powerful. And then the one, of men have made their greatest fortune after the age of 40, which we all fall in that category here. But also looking back, I had to Google it, because I'm like, all right, that's in our age range. But back then, the life expectancy in 1937 was 58 of a man and 62 of a woman. So that, again, I'm just saying, like, that really, that shrinks, we're looking at like, 60 to 70 really in that age range. So we're all ahead of schedule on that, our fortune, to be had and to be made. Like, it's just it takes that long for us to, really get that out of our system and really understand. That's the reason why we're all on here. I mean, we could be doing so many other things the last many Wednesdays, but there's more. We know there's more. And we're like scratching like at the surface to know, like, what the hell's in this book, man, that, Bob Proctor spent 60 whatever years of his life every single day. The ones that, that these men that this was all written about, what did they have? It's nothing different. Like you said, this was written in 1937, right, Tyrone? I mean, this is going back, and we're talking about all these, there's nothing new. What this war, all this shit that's going on, there's nothing new. The political stuff, there's nothing new. The agendas that they've had, there's nothing new. It's for us to understand and pull out these little pieces and these little nuggets within all of this, and everybody seeing it and hearing it from a little different angle. But it's, again, it's scratching. Okay, now we're getting it. We're getting to something, getting more, really diving in and understanding the, little details of, like, again, Tyrone said, like, how you're can believe, like, this chapter and what was written, it's real. I mean, and then really diving in and really understanding the importance of this chapter. And again, it's always, when I've gotten to this chapter, it's always thrown me a little bit. And again, you read stuff, or you watch a movie, or you listen to music in different areas or stages of your life, and you hear and see things completely different than you did the last time. That could be yesterday. When I listened to the audio yesterday versus today when we read it, it's even hitting different. So what about you, Bri? What you got, man?
Partnerships, not just the word that keeps popping into my mind when I think about these type of things, is partnerships, and how great people can ascend to greatness with partnerships, right? And the way that this book is written in those times, and it is kind of, of course, yes, to these words and these values are very offensive, but I think what the book is, the fundamentals are there, right? So, like, if a man or a woman were ascending to a role of prominence, right, and they have a partner there, their partner should be there to support, right, not necessarily be in competition with, right? In a public face, in private, the relationship could be, contentious, competitive, can be rambunctious. But if you're in a public area, in a public facing area, there should be roles, right? Like when you're playing sports, like the center can't be the point guard, right? You know, the defensive back can't be the quarterback, right? So everybody's got their position and their role, and the way that those roles are defined could be the position of the person ascending to those certain areas, right? And it to me, it was harder. Like when I first was reading this book, that I've read it a while ago. This chapter was hard to read because of what he was saying, like you were saying, David, before. And I heard that, I'm like, man, that's crazy, man. Like a woman's place is not just in the kitchen. Like that's kind of what I was hearing, right? But then today I was listening to it. I'm like, oh, hold on, time out for a second. Let me think about this for a second. There's, the vice president now, she's a woman, and these words can be exactly interpreted the same way because she's got a husband, right? And he is not in that position of power. She is. So he's got to play that support role, even though he is, so in this book, a man, and he's playing the lesser role, right? So it's interesting how, how the fundamental principles interpret or are always there and are basic and it's simple, and how you interpret them and how you kind of share them with people and how you bounce ideas off of people is a cool way of learning how to apply them and use them to their full effectiveness, I suppose. It's pretty cool book, pretty cool chapter. Thank you.
I understand what you're talking about with like the vice, for example. I mean, I'm in the same type of example now. I don't work. My wife is a psychologist, so she brings all the money home, most of the money, and careful about my feelings about that, honestly, because as a man, you want to be in the head role financially or whatever, and I'm not, and I'm trying to adapt to that situation,
Sure.
and knows that too. So she's very delicate as far as what to do and what she says to me and stuff like that. It's just a tight rope that, she appreciates what I'm doing with the baby for my daughter. I appreciate what she's, because we both are working hard, but just different ways. So
exactly. And it's no different than if you were in power or whatever. But if the relationship is solid and it's actually truly built on love,
right.
There should be that communication between people, no matter who's the breadwinner, right? You should always have support, and you should always know that the person that you're involved in that relationship is working hard to support the relationship to make the relationship the best it can possibly be.
Yeah.
Right.
And also,
right.
there's outside influences as well, because most of my family is older, and so they're kind of like from the old school. They're thinking that I do too much because they're old school, and I'm thinking, hey, it's a new world environment that we have to adapt to, and if I'm able to do it, I will.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
About the sex itself. Only humans are the only ones that use sex really just for pleasure to do it, versus animals and everybody else do it for a specific reason. Years as well as what I was reading, and I've heard that before, but to see it again is just reiterates what we're talking about. So, but yeah, I just want.
Yeah, one of the other pieces that I pulled out earlier or yesterday when I was listening to it, and then I was in conversation with Byron and Erica yesterday. And I don't even know how it came up, and it was just how, if you want answers, if you really need to know, or before you make a decision, close your eyes. And they're like, because that's not you thinking, that's it being downloaded into you versus what you have in you. It's not what's brought in out. It's downloading and then boom, it's like that, that. And how many times have we seen Byron do that? It's like, he'll sit there and then just freaking like God will flow through him like you've never seen it. But I do it. I do it myself. I'm sure you guys all do it. But you know, anytime you take that, it's right in the book. Take it. Just sit in silence for 2 to 3 minutes or longer. Sometimes it comes in 5 seconds. You know, it's powerful, and I do that all the time, man. I like, especially when I go down to the beach, I'm just like, usually I'll just start writing or calling or texting because it's like it all comes.
Yeah. I think that you talk about going back and reading the book and you see it in a different light. What Christina was talking about with Bill Clinton and everything, I'm looking at the special about Bill Cosby, and going back and look at it in a different light. You know, you look at some of the things that he was saying, may have been referring to some of the things that he was doing, but we never caught on to it. Definitely, I need to go back and read this chapter again, just like I look at it with different eyes. Yeah. But if you get a chance to see that Bill Cosby special, it's like a 4-part on show.
What was it on?
I think it's on Showtime.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Called, we need to talk about Bill Cosby. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was on the same page as you. I caught that with the closing your eyes. Yeah, that was huge. But I also like the fact that, you know, the sex is discussed, because I think that maybe a lot of people don't embrace that, you know. I feel like it's just as important as breathing air, you know. And then the love, okay, the love will help a couple overcome a season which will arrive one day if the couple is blessed to reach it together, right? So love will help a couple, definitely love, man, will help the couple overcome the lack of that season that once existed that is gone.
Yep.
So, you know, and so the fact that the book says don't worry about not having it, you know, because for worrying doesn't accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
So know that, you know, I just love that they talk about sex in a healthy fashion, you know, because it is a necessity. It is important for a healthy relationship. And, but, you know, still, I go back to the combination of love and sex. And, you know, my husband and I are going to celebrate 40 years. I can't believe it. Yeah, I can't believe it.
Got married when you were 2.
Dumb, I'm going to be 60, man, in April.
Hey, it's all good.
I can't believe it.
60, healthy and happy. What else? And in love. What else could you ask for?
Yes. And this is
April, what day?
April 6th.
April 6th.
So yeah, my husband and I are together 40 years, but we'll be married 30. We have 2 beautiful kids. But I'm going to tell you, it has not been a bed of roses. And that's why I keep going back to the love, the love, the love. And love can conquer everything with 2 individuals or with one initially, and that love can get that other individual back in some cases. But without love, what good is anything, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's just
100% agree. Life is too short to just have sex and have no love. Or love and no sex. I mean, like they said, it's like a river. There's a dam, it's gonna break, it's gonna bust out, it's gonna go fine. But I gotta roll, fellas and ladies, or lady, our other one left us. She didn't get to get on tonight, but I appreciate you all, and we'll see y'all next Wednesday.
See you guys.
Yeah, anything pops up, throw it in the Telegram.
All right.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Ladies.